Twitter has announced it is cutting off President Trump's ability to post on the social media site permanently, suspending the president's account at @RealDonaldTrump. Twitter saying, after close review of recent tweets from the president's account and the context around them, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement and violence. In context of the horrific events this week, we've made it clear on Wednesday that additional violations of the Twitter rules would potentially result in this very course of action. Joining us again from the North Lawn of the White House, John Roberts. John, obviously this president has used Twitter throughout his presidency. He has some 89 million followers, and now Twitter permanently suspending his account.
Yeah, you know, they cut it off for about a day and a half, Brett, and now they've cut it off permanently. And just to give you a little more context as to what's behind all of this, Twitter put out a blog detailing its decision. And in that blog, Twitter says that President Trump's statement that he will not be attending the inauguration is being received by a number of his supporters as further confirmation that the election was not legitimate, and is being seen as him disavowing his previous claim via 2 tweets for an orderly transition on the 20th. The second tweet may also serve, it says here, as encouragement to those potentially considering violent acts that the inauguration will be a, quote, safe target as he will not be attending. Further, the use of the words American patriots in earlier tweets to describe some of his supporters is also being interpreted as support for those committing violent acts at the U.S. Capitol. And a tweet that he put out earlier today about his supporters having a giant voice long into the future and that they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form is being interpreted as further indication that President Trump does not plan to facilitate an orderly transition, and instead that he plans to continue to support, empower, and shield those who believe that he won the election. According to Twitter, plans for future armed protests have already begun proliferating on and off Twitter, including a proposed secondary attack on the U.S. Capitol and state Capitol buildings on January the 17th. So Twitter is looking at all of this, and its calculation is that what the president is saying, even by just saying that I'm not attending the inauguration, is being seen as code language to the president's supporters, that it's a safe target there at the Capitol, that the election was not legitimate despite the fact that the president has called for an orderly transition. So because of this incitement to violence, as Twitter is perceiving it, they are permanently suspending the president's account. Now, he can still get the message out through his digital media director, Dan Scavino. His Facebook and Instagram accounts have also been blocked. This was the way that the president was reaching out past the press to get straight to his constituents. So we'll have to see how the president reacts to all of this. Brett, it seemed that he reacted all right to the first suspension because he knew it was only going to be temporary, but this permanent suspension now, this may draw something out of the president that we haven't seen so far.
It is something to see a company, and they are a company, divine from those statements what they divine in that blog readout of what it truly means. I mean, we should point out the president also put out a video in which he denounced the violence pretty specifically in that speech, which came out on Twitter.
Yeah, and the president has long railed against big tech, Facebook, Twitter, other social media platforms, which is why he has been looking to repeal Section 230 that protects them from actions regarding things that are either posted or actions that they take. It protects them from legal action. So the president will probably yell even louder and longer about that whole thing. But you're right, Brett, that the tweet about, for those of you who have been asking, I'm not going to go to the inauguration on the 20th, would seem to be innocent on the surface. But Twitter is saying, when you look at the reaction to it and the conversation that it's fomenting on Twitter, they're perceiving it as being dangerous talk. I'm not sure that that's the interpretation that you would draw from it. But again, they're taking all of this as a whole. They've long had a problem with President Trump and what he puts on Twitter, and it looks like that problem has now come to a head in a way that Twitter, which is a private company, can take unilateral action here.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a major story, not just from what happened this week, but going forward about what it means about the interaction of government officials and social media, what divining words it means. They are private companies.
Yeah, and again, they're public to a large degree because they are such a platform for interaction between people around the world. But they are, at their very basic level, a private company, and they can take steps that they think is appropriate to protect their company or protect people who are consuming the product that they facilitate. But again, for the president to have his major voice taken away from him, considering that he hasn't taken any questions from the press for a long time now, that could provoke some sort of reaction. We'll see. We'll keep watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite something. It fits into a bigger picture. John will head back for any breaking news.